What's up, everyone? It's your boy Showtimedr, my Epic 7 video. So, a lot of controversy going on with Epic 7, introduction of the pet system, the weird intro of the auto system, and of course, like all the Luna controversy and all that, but not gonna get into any of that. I was hanging out on my boy Lichbit's stream, twitch.tv/lichbits with a Z at the end. And it was funny because he was going through and like farming everything, and he was basically done for the day on everything except for one thing. Oh god, I gotta go do a raid. Like, I was doing like a million things at the moment. I heard him say that and I perked up. Oh, really? Just like so. Everyone started talking about raid, like, oh my god, ugh, ugh, ugh. And I remember, because the game's been out about a year, right? If you count the Korean servers. I was like, when Raid came out, it was actually one of the most impressive things I'd seen in a gacha game because it was like them and Dragalia had the best raid on launch rate. But this game, it was like, oh yeah, it's like raiding on Courage in World of Warcraft. You go through, there's mobs, there's sub-bosses, it's exploration, and eventually you get to a boss, and all the bosses at the time, it's like, wow, how am I going to beat that? And it was just some really interesting stuff, and then hell difficulty came in eventually, so we started doing hell difficulty, and then that's when the odd things started happening. Number one, despite all the funkiness and the fixes that they did to it, Hunt ended up bypassing Raid as far as total gear you could get, even with you say it, like Hell Raid, once Hell Raid came into the equation. So we had that going on, and then we also had another game here. There was just like a million things going on at once, and as the game progressed and months went on, like, well, what are we even doing with Raid? Because it's not the place where you get the most elite loot. And on Hell mode, they won't even let us run more than 2 of the bosses for the longest time. They finally got rid of that about a month and a half or so ago. And then, it just got to the point where it was like, oh, what are we doing? Like, what are we really doing? Like, why are we doing this every week? And the pros to doing raid every week, you get a bunch of the points you can spend at the shop for either tokens or what have you, and then gear, you get pretty good gear in Hell Raid, of course it always depends on the role and the main stat and all that, but for the most part though, normal Raid right now, unless you're a new player, like one of the more boring things in the game. And then, so we had a couple of naysayers be like, well, why don't you just auto it? Well, you can't. Like, yeah, you can do it like this right now, but I still have to choose, okay, go up, go left, go up, go left. So there's no autoing it, you still have to sit here and do it. Which, a lot of people, oh, that's nitpicking. Oh yeah, but then when you gotta do raid, at least once every day, a couple times a day if you're doing hell mode, and you've saved up the tokens and stuff. And then also, remember the dev note came out? I forget which one it was, but it's been a couple months now. They said, oh yeah, we're looking into adding a new raid, and there's going to be fixes, and basically you're going to be able to warp directly to bosses that you've beaten before. And that all sounded really good, but then okay, well, where is all that? Where's all these extra fixes? And I'm pretty sure the same thing happened, same thing that always happens, guys. Start with a good idea, and they start adding fluff to it, and eventually they got other projects to do. It gets bogged down, and it becomes this big, gigantic monster when it was just supposed to be one simple thing. And at the beginning of Raid, for those who don't know, it was actually advantageous to go around and hunt all the little sub-bosses that are in the pathways that aren't directly to the bosses. Because even though it affected your morale, there was a chance that legendary loot would drop. I remember there was one legendary loot that would drop somewhere in the dungeon every week, and it was kind of randomized. And so that kind of made it worth it. Like, oh, okay, I'm just starting my account. I can't kill all the bosses. Yo, let's go find this legendary loot. And then you get it. Okay, you know, depending on how it rolled, it was either really good, really bad. Usually it was at least a, you know, a good side piece for bringing up a new character or something. But, and then eventually they took that out. And I forget, there was like a certain update, I forget what it was. But they took that out, so then trash mobs, literally the only reason trash mobs exist is to wear down your morale. For those who don't know what morale is, it's up here. So eventually you get to a point, usually minus 30, where no matter how buff you are, in most cases, there are some super players that can get past this. But in most cases, you can't go on when you don't have 80% of your attack, your health, your defense, and your speed. Like, even if you can, like, spam Arky for a battle or something, you know, the mobs outspeed you so much that you don't even get a turn. Pretty much the way it goes, so. And so trash mobs really don't matter, but trash mobs take up the majority of the time in Raid. So, and then you get little side bosses here, which they generally do drop decent pieces of loot. But as you see here, I don't even know what the loot is that's been dropping, other than the gold and the currency, because once again they added this sap-covered item things, because players used to rerun Raid back when there wasn't that much to do, because they would look at their item drops and be like, ah, that's garbage. And Smilegate was like, well, we want to help with the stress, people feeling like they have to run Raid. It was a bullshit excuse. What they really wanted to do was just prevent you from being able to cherry pick your loot. And which was also the excuse why they didn't add the majority of the mobs to Hell Raid, because they didn't want you having that access to that good a gear that early in the game. And it created this void and this vacuum where people were just desperate for gear, so they're crafting like crazy, they're going to hunt like crazy, they're doing all the quests that definitely good gear like crazy. And it's just, a lot of it was unnecessary, and it kind of proved that Raid, while being a really cool, awesome function, was not something that they had a long-term idea for. And as you see, I'm in the camp here. So the camp, to be honest, I think they should actually do something different with the camp along with morale boosts, like maybe Darkest Dungeon style, add a buff or something similar to that. But anyhow, this is the only way you can get morale back. So you see the camp simulators that are on various websites, and they are like, they'll tell you what to say and where to get the most morale. And so people had tuned their teams around morale, which is weird because it's like, well, you know, if you were going through, like in most cases, slaughtering a dungeon, would your morale be like, oh, I'm so depressed? Like, no, you'd be like, yeah, let's get this, let's kill this dude and get this thing. You know, but for whatever reason, that's the way that they made this game. So, but so, some people, they would put together morale super teams. And the super teams were good enough so that you could get to, like in the case of Hell Raid, you could get the 2 Hell Raid bosses in a row once they opened up all the bosses. You know, in consideration with warps and moving screens and all the mobs you would have to fight, you would still have just enough morale to be above -30 here. If you had a good enough team, you could smoke 2 bosses. Well, Smilegate anticipated this, and they decided, oh, well, we don't want you guys to do more than 1 boss per hell run. So when you defeat a boss, the other bosses are going to go hide. But I have never in my life ever heard of that. Like, imagine like a raid mob in like a Final Fantasy Online or the Warcraft, whatever the hell you could name, and it, oh, one of the bosses in the place got defeated. We're gonna go hide. What the fuck? Like maybe there was like specific hidden bosses or like bosses you had to unlock by doing XYZ thing, but no boss goes and hides. They're a fucking boss. So that was like one of the silliest, dumbest things I've ever heard them come up with, and oh my god, that was just silly. I'm gonna see if they can auto this. I don't care, but basically, even when we found ways to get around a dumb system like morale, well, the company, you know, Smilegate Super Creative, they show their true hand and be like, oh, well, we don't want you to be able to do that, so it's just stupid shit. So, for lack of a better term, Raid really sucks overall. And we're still waiting for like the majority fixes. And what I think they're gonna do, this is just me, I don't know for sure, but what I think is gonna happen is they are going to release the new raid, whatever that's gonna be, and they're just gonna get rid of this one. Like, it'll just be a thing of the past, like, rather than sit there and fix the content, it's gonna be like, oh, it'll be the same as, what was that one thing that was there before the current? What's it called? Like the Castle Gardens or whatever, where you would fight the random mobs, and they would supposedly drop really good upgrade gear and tokens and stuff like that, and in practice, we found out it's a waste of stamina because the drop rate was so abysmal other than doing the achievement clear bonuses. Or maybe like some quests or something. There's basically no doing it. And that's kind of what I'm assuming that this is going to be. So hopefully, when they do go around and decide they're going to put in the new raid, hopefully that'll be... I mean, it's like anything, you know, you make improvements on something, there's always something better to be improved upon, but hopefully it'll be good enough to where... Because the gear economy in this game really doesn't make sense. And I know it's heavily RNG based and grind based. I understand. But, you know, think about another game where going and getting materials drops you better gear than in-game raid bosses. It's like, yeah, there's some stuff, you know, like if you get legendary materials or that, but you usually have to farm it in a raid environment. And in this game, it's just like, well, like this right now, literally I'm only doing it so I can go kill Queen later. And they still have the dumb lock where you have to go kill 2 bosses. That's another limiter they put on. And like with this team, with their morale, I'm only able to get most of the way to the second boss. And unfortunately, I have to spend another 2, whatever the hell the currency keys or whatever, to come in and do this. So, I mean, it's just... It's the treadmill effect, you know. They're limiting your progress and what you can do. Because if you can do too much, they're afraid you'll run out of stuff to do, you won't want to play as much, when in reality, this is one of those few games in phone gaming where people actually want to play a lot and can't. And that's a whole topic for a whole nother day, but... So in general, those are the things that I see wrong with Raid. Now, as far as improvements, and you guys, like I said in the comments, you know, give me your experiences, what you think the next Raid should be able to accomplish. Number 1, I would definitely get rid of any difference between like normal and historic, or sorry, heroic. Heroic, because that's like a Blizzard tactic, you know, with the loot treadmill, and they're probably going to keep it, to be perfectly honest, but I would personally get rid of that and make the raid super freaking hard. Have variables for the bosses, so maybe they could have varied phases where they don't always do the same thing in phase 2. That type of thing would actually be pretty cool. They got different passives, different weaknesses. And, you know, keep it so that the currency is, you know, it doesn't get used up in a loss. But in that way, it'll offer a little bit more of a challenge. Now, keep that within reason. Don't go, like, drastic on it. Like, well, this guy's weak to this, but now you need this totally different format because he's also weak to this. Like, have us kind of vary our teams to cover both bases. Like, if he goes this route, then we got these characters. If he goes this route, we got these characters. And maybe you have one character that can counter both solutions or whatever. And that's great. That'll make him a more valuable character, a more rare character. You know, maybe even some of the lesser used characters. Anyhow, so that's one thing I would add. I would definitely... The morale system and the mob system, if they're going to put that skip in like they said that they were for the new raid, then I guess the morale system at the beginning won't be the worst deal, but typically what like trash mobs and mini bosses are supposed to do, they're supposed to be like gear checks. Like, do you even belong in here? Is kind of how it's supposed to go, and to be perfectly honest, you can accomplish, you know, within like 3 to 4 packs of, okay, I deserve to be here, let's go. And in general, since we've been running this for a year, unless you really like bugs and watching eggs hatch, you know, this is basically as far as this goes, killing all the bugs and stuff. Anyhow, loot, I would say, they always want the RNG aspect to loot, but I would say it would be cool to have a locked main set. And, you know, make it, like, variable as far as... But always make it good, though. Because, for the most part, flat main stats stuck on the right side piece of your equipment tier list. But, you know, sometimes you might want crit hit damage, but if you also get, like, speed or attack or something, you're generally gravy as long as everything else is okay with the gear. You just give it to a different person that'll utilize it differently. Like, that would all be pretty cool. Or maybe have it so that we can farm a material on what hunt is. It would be, okay, you got so much of XYZ material. Now you can choose, okay, you want your main stat to be attack. We need 400 of this because this is a epic piece of gear. We need 1,000 of this because it's a legendary piece of gear. What have you. And then that way people could feel like their grinding wasn't all for RNG, like, oh, I grinded, I did everything right today, and I didn't get anything out of it. Besides some tips and stuff. Have some treasure chests in here, like some good treasure chests, not some bullshit treasure chests, like, maybe with some of the shop currency, a good amount of gold, not like some crap gold, like 1,000 gold, make it like, minimum 50,000, 100,000. That type of thing, like something that'll really help you offset those costs that you're going to use for your crafting, have you know, make it feel worthwhile. And then also, if you are going to have trash mobs, have the trash mobs a good percentage chance to actually drop something decent. Just some fair weather crap that we can get. I will couch one thing I said earlier. It might be okay if you have the normal version and like the heroic version of a raid. Because, you know, there's going to be new accounts and that type of thing. But make it so that you don't have to run the normal if you want to run just the legendary. Or the upgraded version of the raid. That's one thing I would like to see. And so here's what happens if you're at minus 30. You can see here. Turn off. So even though my characters would just wipe this normally, look at all those turns that they take in a row. 3 out of 4 of those characters are on speed sets, so it's pretty ridiculous. Luckily, we get the free retry, which is something else I also think they should keep. But anyways, and then I'm sure there's a couple other improvements. It would just be nice to have like either a rotating raid or like a different boss lineup or something to where it's not just always the static 1-2, 1-2, march in uniform order type thing. Like, make it variable, make it fun. That's what I think. Anyhow, that is, go to my logistics office here. And here's another thing, like this lady, you know, in the heroic version, she drops some awesome stuff, and if you need this stuff, that's all great, but for the most part, I don't really need any of this. The gear, for the most part, is outdated now. But the only thing I really care about, I just want the freaking epic artifact charm. This gift thing, this RNG gift thing, 1000% of the time, it's 200,000 gold. Hey, you know, that's a chest. If you need the gold, that's great, but personally, I want an artifact charm. 4. Oh, and then one other thing. Okay, so like, I just killed the boss, right? So the boss dropped one of these. Well, this isn't counted with my total, like the total of the souvenir I had. You know, it says 0 owned. Well, it's in my loot pile, but when I go to the shopkeeper to spend, like, let's say I killed a couple bosses, I can't spend any of it. So if you're, like, 1 away from getting, like, the really good thing, and you have it on you, but they won't let you do that, they should change that, too. That's kind of stupid. Anyhow. Enough of this. And those are my thoughts, guys. So let me know what you think. There's some better way to improve raid, the hierarchy of gear. Your thoughts on that. And yeah, literally, raid is like going to the D.M.V. It's something that you have to do. but you don't really want early, even though you do. So, but that'll be it, guys. So, catch you guys later on. Have a great evening.